We're doing our video log here from San Diego at the Hard Rock Hotel. I'm here as part of the National Exchange Forum for Botox, or Allergan, the company that makes Botox. Just want to give you some ideas of what's been going on in the last couple days in terms of things I've learned about Botox, things that I think may be of interest to you, so that you can sort of keep up to date as much as I have been. First of all, in the press in January there were some issues with Botox safety in terms of what people reported, some deaths and some other very significant adverse events brought to the public's attention through an organization called Public Citizen, which is started and founded in 1971 by Ralph Nader. What's very interesting is that there has really, after the FDA investigation, been found to have no causal link for cosmetic problems in terms of having any deaths or any significant adverse events in the history of using Botox as a cosmetic indication, even since the late 80s. The problems that arose with Botox in terms of having health problems, if there was anything even linked at all, and again there was no causal link, but the suspicion was in cases with juvenile cerebral palsy, children that were very, very sick, who had a lot of medical conditions, and Botox usage was much, much higher doses than in what would be used otherwise in conventional cosmetic purposes. So about 20 to 30 times in very sick children. There may be some indication that Botox may have caused some problems, but it's not very clear. But in cosmetic purposes, in the history of over 20 some years of use, there's been no causal link, no problems in terms of deaths or significant adverse events using Botox brand from Allergan. The other thing that was interesting that I found is something that I've always been wondering myself, to what extent movement after a procedure, in other words, after I put your Botox in, whether movement and frowning and lifting your brows will actually help with the Botox efficacy. I've always believed that it wasn't a significant contributing factor in terms of improvement, but there was some early studies way back when in the 90s that looked at in people that actually was much larger doses for legs and other things that were neuromuscular, and they found that activating the muscle could in fact actually help the efficacy or benefit of Botox. Now, there is really no significant clinical study that shows this, and as you know, if you're a Botox user from me, your results are very, very good. I don't think I'm going to really push you to go and try to move those muscles, because we don't know how many times, how often, how long, whether it even makes an impact whatsoever. But if you want some of those very skeletal studies that were done a long time ago, seems to indicate that there could be some increased benefit in trying to activate or moving the muscles after a treatment of Botox, maybe in the first couple hours or so. But remember, as a caveat, that means not rubbing the area. That's a no-no. That's not something we're talking about. There's other new fillers that are in the pipeline right now, coming out, that are not quite ready yet, from the Medicis group, which makes Restylane. They're deeper volume fills. The new one is going to be called Restylane Sub-Q, and the one coming from Botox, or Allergan, which is the one that sponsored this meeting, is called Voluma. These are still not quite yet available yet in the United States for FDA purposes. It's unclear whether they're going to be that much better than Juvenorm Ultra Plus and Perlane, but those are interesting deeper fills, because I think the new strategies, listening to some of the small breakout groups, is that we're really focused today on volume fill, something that I've been preaching for quite some time, and not just filling smile lines. So I think that's a very, very interesting thing. Even though I have come here to learn a lot from the Botox group, Allergan that is, I have actually denied the honorarium, and that honorarium is being moved over to my favorite charity, just to let you know, so that when I lecture all the time, I don't lecture on behalf of any companies. I don't take any money from them. But I thought it was interesting just to give you guys an update in terms of what I think is happening in the field of Botox today, answer some of the safety questions that were raised a couple months ago, which I haven't directly answered because I didn't have enough information to do so, and also some of the new fillers that are in the pipeline coming out very shortly. Thank you. Well, I'm a lot less tired today from last night. We had a long day yesterday, so I wanted to give you another update from the morning session today. I attended a session on looking at some of the new competitors with Botox coming out, such as Xeomin and Relaxin. Unfortunately, some of the studies that were done were sponsored through Botox or Allergan, so it's not entirely clear how much better Botox is or how much better Relaxin, which is coming out. by medicines, the people that make Restylane, is going to be. I think that from a competitive standpoint, probably the only way that Relaxin is going to do well is to try to compete against Botox on a price point. But in terms of efficacy, phase 3 trials have shown that the efficacy or the benefits are about the same duration of action as Botox, about 85 days. Safety records, there's some initial thoughts that there was a greater diffusion pattern, and there still may be a greater diffusion pattern, but the incidence in this phase 3 trial with ptosis, which is eye dropping, it was about 2.9% compared to the phase 3 trials with Botox in America, which showed about 3.2%, so roughly the same, at least in this trial. So I think that from a safety perspective, it's probably very comparable to Botox. Efficacy, about the same. We don't know what the price point is. The FDA recently did reject their submission. They're going through a resubmission process. I don't know exactly when that's going to come out. As you probably know, there's going to be other competitors as well from Germany. There's one called Xeomin. The study that Botox looked at is actually sponsored through Botox, so you got to be careful in evaluating those results. But Xeomin showed that the amount or the number of units that were consistently placed inside each bottle of Xeomin was considerably less than promised. But again, that is unclear because you don't know exactly how accurate all that information is since the research was done at Allergan. The other thing that I thought was very interesting is that something in terms of how Botox is applied. I tend to put Botox here in the lateral corner to lift the brows up, and that's where the traditional idea of where to place Botox in order to achieve a brow lift result. But there's been some new studies, new thinking about how Botox placed in the center right here can actually achieve just as good, if not better, or maybe slightly worse, depending on the person's degree of brow elevation. The way that it does that is twofold. One is that this area, when this area gets relaxed, it can actually spread the brow upward this way just ever so slightly. The other thought is that potentially Botox diffusing slightly into the tail of the frontalis muscle. Remember, the frontalis muscle is the muscle that lifts. That's usually what the forehead injection is all about. But what they've shown is that if you just block a little of the tails of the frontalis here, there's a relative elevation in the outer tails to achieve that little bit of a chemical brow lift effect. So I thought that was very interesting information, which is the fact that you can actually treat this zone right here and get just as good or as good a result on the side. So if you're not quite getting the results across the sides, you can add that or just do that as a substitute. So some of those variables are there. So just wanted to update you on Sunday morning's session. I think it was a very interesting and worthwhile session so far. Thank you.